can't stand the rain against my window.
Burps, hold on.
Gross.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week of Hot Topic Tuesdays. It's your boy Toph.
And your girl Constance.
And we are coming at you from Stanton, Virginia. We're very glad to have you all here this week. We have a lot of stuff to talk about.
I feel like I haven't seen you all week.
You haven't seen me all week?
I mean, I've seen you, but I haven't I don't know. I feel like a lot's happened.
A lot has happened. This week's been very telling about my adulthood.
Ignore the car.
Ignore the car. I guess I haven't seen you either.
Yeah,
what have you been up to? How have you been?
Well, I feel like this week is, like you said, telling. It's been really telling. A lot. I feel like a lot has just happened in this week, even outside of me. I want to personally take a moment to just say that we send our love and prayers out to Ahmaud Arbery's family. And that makes me angry. It makes me frustrated. It makes me feel hopeless sometimes, but then I look around and I see how quickly people, my friends and the people that I call family, and people, even distant people who I don't even call family, just people that I've come across, and how quickly they've rallied to say, we're not taking this anymore.
Yeah.
And I know the NAACP has started that campaign. I think it's We're Done Dying, or We're Tired of Dying. And it's just to ban African Americans in their communities to no longer stand for this. And how do we empower one another and ourselves and our allies? Because that's the thing that I think people
allies
often forget.
Are so important.
Because
in any community that deals with adversity, allies are so important.
I know, and I feel like so thank you, on behalf of people of color, the LGBTQ community,
the theater community, the theater community.
Thank you to our allies. We could not do anything without y'all. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for using your privilege to move it forward, so that there can one day be an equal playing field. Because I look forward to the day that a brown kid doesn't have to walk around scared about taking up space. Stop apologizing for that. Keep taking up your space. I am fighting in every way that I can in my own life, and I know that you are, to make sure that we provide a world where everybody can take up space, because you deserve it, and you should not feel afraid to take up space. So again, our prayers and our love goes out to Ahmaud Arbery's family and friends. Yeah.
Ooh, that was a word. And I love you.
Yeah, I love you too, man. I love you too.
Oh, girl, you got me.
I know.
Whew. Moving on, we're going to move on to a question that was asked last week's video.
Yes.
Was how to channel emotions when performing. We've been in situations where we've had to in a particular scene perform a particular role, which might have been a particular emotion that we are not used to accessing all the time. How do you, Constance Swain, in your life and your training, how do you access those?
Training. You said it. It's training. Because I think for everybody it's different, right? So there are actors where it's when I'm asked to suck out my core and cry, and I have to move mountains and roll a bus with my tears or whatever, flood the world. That's not necessarily something that Constance is bad. It's it's not easy.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to me. My biological makeup, for whatever reason, I can tap into all the tears and all the wishing upon the stars I did for young beaux. Comedy is the thing that I have to work at, because I wouldn't necessarily call myself funny.
I think you're funny.
This is bottom. You know he's funny.
You know who's really funny is KP Powell.
Oh my gosh.
Constance went to grad school with KP?
Yeah, I was in a class under him, University of Houston.
University of Houston, shout out. KP toured with me my first year, and Constance her first year, which was the year before my first year. Did that make sense? Anyways, the point is, KP's amazing at comedy, and he's amazing at tragedy, at everything. So follow him on Instagram, KP Powell. So he's really good at comedy.
Yeah, he's great at comedy, but I feel like that's something that I'm not necessarily the best at.
They say that comedy, perform it as if it is a tragedy, and the comedy comes out of the tragedy.
Yeah, because it's the realness of it.
You can't get too in your head about comedy.
So, think Robin Williams, Carol Burnett, Eddie Murphy. Yes, these people are funny, but sometimes the most moving of their roles that they do in a comedy or whatever, like Mrs. Doubtfire, happens because they're living in the reality, the tragedy. They're not playing the funny.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Well, how do I channel emotions? I have frequently found myself getting cast in a lot of comedic roles. I like to delve into tragedy. I like to delve into, a great role for me to do that was last year when we did Antigone and I played Tiresias.
Oh, yeah.
I would say yes with the training, but I also take from life experiences.
Oh, sure, yes.
I'm a very empathetic person at heart. One thing about me is if my grandmother cries or if my mom cries, I always end up crying.
He becomes a weeping willow.
I
you
really
can't stop
do.
it.
And like the thing is, it's easy for me to tap into that, I guess, because of some of my experiences. I lost my dad back in 2011, and that was a new experience. That was an emotion that I can tap into, and it's not one I like to frequently tap into, but it is one that I have experienced. This week I felt a lot of anxiety.
The eyes are over there.
I've had a lot of panic attacks.
I've had a lot of panic attacks
This week, and I'll tell you why after. It is easy for me to access those sometimes, not always. When they always say like, take that emotion, put it in your pocket for a rainy day.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I do.
Similarly to Topher, like, it's the life experiences and understanding when you meet a character for the first time, and I think most actors do this. They're always looking for where they and the character overlap and trying to find the similarities.
Yeah.
And when you do and you find something that's useful, you are able to essentially thread it in. It's a very delicate balance, I think, regardless of whatever the show is, whether it's comedy or tragedy. We have to know when the show is over that we can step out of that world, because when actors are like constantly feeling.
Speaking of emotions and constantly feeling, how do we deal with conflict in the rehearsal space, or particularly in this business? Because everyone, whatever job they have to deal with conflict.
Yeah.
How do you deal with conflict? How do you approach it in a way that's respectful, yet you get your point across? Like, that's what we hope, is that we walk away feeling great.
The first thing I do is I reassess what happened. But like, I try to think about it like, what happened? Where was there a misunderstanding? Like, what don't we quite agree with? And then I try to figure out if there's something, before I go, this person did this and this person did that, and da-da-da-da. I go, well, what did Constance do? What could that person say that I did to not help the situation? I'm going to them with that first. I always try to open the door of communication by saying, hey, I know we had this issue. Here's where I see that I may have messed up, and like, this is my plan to fix it. So that gives them room to say, okay, well, let me step in and say, hey, okay, I see, I'm gonna meet you halfway. Because chances are, you meet someone butting heads, they're automatically on the defense, especially actors. So if it's about like a choice and it's something that I'm in a scene with someone, it really depends on the scenario, I suppose, because you've got like Ren season where there's no director, because normally if there's a conflict with like a scene, you go to the director and say, hey, what do you want this to be? And they figure that out because they're the head honcho. But in something like Ren season where it was just the actors, it was mostly about like, okay, who is the Hamlet? So who's like the one with the most lines of this play, or the most lines in this scene? Like, who's the one who's moving the plot forward? And we're gonna lean on that person and their vision, and I'm gonna try to support that. But if I feel like we're butting heads in some way, I try to figure out if it's even worth fighting for. Sometimes it feels like, let me take a step back. Is this something that's gonna really bother me? Like, is this something I need to say something about, or can I just, like, as I like to say, charge that one to the game, which means let that go. That's oftentimes what I will do, is go, yeah, but if it keeps happening, especially if I feel like it's something like where a person may be disrespectful or belittling me in any way, if it happens more than once, I now know I need to do something about it. Because sometimes people just have rough days and you just gotta charge it to the game. But there are some times where if it happens again, I take a step back and I go, all right, how am I going to approach this person? What could I have done better? What is my solution and how I am going to do better? And then what is it that I would like that person to understand? I try to keep emotions out of it.
I'm such an emotional person. Being an actor, I'm an emotional person. I don't usually have that kind of clear sense of trying to resolve a conflict because I get so caught up in what I'm saying.
As I've gotten older and spent more time in the game and had more things to, resolve, I try to give it like at least a day so I can step away and remove myself from it and think about it at my own pace. That's what I would recommend most, because you'll often find that it's not as big a deal as it was in the moment.
Right.
Usually, because
Right.
you got to think about the stress of a rehearsal room,
Yeah.
the stress of tour. Because I know, like you were on tour.
I think one important thing when resolving is having your own space. Having your own space is so important so that you can
What
actually
happens when you can't though? When you're on tour, like what do?
You find it. You go to the hotel lobby, you go outside, you go to the venue that we're performing at. Really with tour, you just roll with the punches. And I think that it's a very challenging yet rewarding experience because I learned so much about myself being on tour for 3 years. And I'm excited to learn about myself being in the resident company. Let me put that in there. Our last question, how did you two become best friends?
As in me and you? It was the last resort.
This is all I had. No.
They always say you find out who your friends are when things start to crumble. You know, and if they're still there helping you piece things together and they're helping you pick up scraps, chances are that's someone you need to have by your side. Yeah.
And we were there for each other.
We were there for each other.
Through the adversities.
We were, and it was really nice. But friendship takes work. I just want to say another thing in terms of being friends with people in your industry, don't look at your friends as competition. How Topher and I got to be best friends. When you get down to it, Topher is rooting for my success. He's never in the corner like,
your
damn.
success is my success.
And your success is mine.
And I truly mean that. I mean, we could have done it without each other, but it makes it easier having a friend. That was the last of our video. But before we go.
If you tuned in last week, we told you that there was a surprise.
So I told you I had a special guest, like Constance said, and all I have to say is that this thorn bush is my thorn bush. And this dog, my dog! Yay. Hi! Oh, everyone, welcome into the world, Miss Cleopatra. Cleo for short. She just got up from a nap, and I love her so very much. She's a Yorkie Chan. We drove and we got this puppy following the CDC guidelines, of course. Everyone say hi to Miss Cleopatra. We have the same eyes. Well, anyways, we want to thank you all so much for joining us this week, and we love you so much. Have a discussion in the comment section below. Let us answer those questions next week. Please feel free to comment how you feel. Like I said, this is a discussion panel, so we like to keep it that way. Until then, we love you all, and happy Hot Topic Tuesdays. Wash your hands.
Wash
them. Wash your hands.
Tell 'em.
And wash your paws.
Wash
your paws.